Hi everybody, really warm welcome to my channel, Nelly the Narcissist. If this is your first time here, then welcome. This is the home of podcasts and comedy skits to help survivors of narcissistic abuse to heal and to recover after their ordeals, aka their relationships with narcissists. Today I'm going to be discussing the process and the time that it takes in narcissistic relationships to gather and assemble enough pieces of the puzzle for you to awaken to what's happening, because obviously for a long time we don't have an idea that the person that we're with is a narcissist. So as well as looking at this topic, at the very end, please do stay, because I'm going to be sharing with you a comedy skit that I made to illustrate what I'll be talking about today. I haven't shared a comedy skit with you for a long time, and a lot of you started following me because of the comedy that I make to raise awareness about narcissistic abuse. So it's coming up for you. And if you appreciate my content, then please do help me out by liking, sharing, subscribing to the channel if you haven't, and leave a comment below and let me know what you think. The very first podcast that I ever made on this channel was answering a question from a viewer about why didn't I leave the narcissist sooner? And that's always one of the prime questions that every survivor asks themselves, because the signs were always there, often from day one, and we chose to ignore the flags for whatever reason. When many of us get into these relationships, and remember, narcissists, they target people that are usually very loyal and devotional. There are so many good people and empaths that find themselves in narcissistically abusive relationships. And because they are very loving, usually that can go hand in hand with being tolerant, patient, understanding, and forgiving, of course. And narcissists, they take full advantage of all of these things. That's why these people are targeted. And in many cases, these are great virtues to have, but we have to have a rethink of these aspects, of our tolerance and patience levels after a narcissistic relationship, because as I said, these are the aspects of your character that narcissists will exploit to the limit. So although signs are there, and at one stage of your life within that relationship, you didn't know what a narcissist was, and you didn't have a clue about narcology. And this ignorance was being used against you. At one time, the narcissist had the upper hand because you were clueless. You didn't know, as one viewer said, that anybody could be that wicked. For most people that are loving, loyal, and devotional, after seeing the best of someone, and at the start, remember, it's incredible with a narcissist. It's like meeting your soulmate, because the narcissist is mirroring you very intensely and focusing everything on you. So you're convinced that this person is amazing and it's the person that you've been waiting for, and it can feel like a very spiritual connection. And in many cases, it is, because it's the forces of good and evil coming together. It's a really scary relationship that will many times lead people into the depths of darkness. And it puts you into a spiritual battle for your soul survival. So it is the most intense relationship that you could ever have. But at the start of a narcissistic relationship, we don't realize the darkness that is going to start coming. Because, like I said at the start, they seem so wonderful and the relationship feels so full of love and so full of light. And because we carry this memory of the narcissist at the very first phase, at the idealization, this memory stays with you for a very long time because it feels very special. And that's okay, because it was special for you. And they were mirroring, like I said, all of your love. So you haven't lost anything. It wasn't actually them. It was you all along. So we carry this memory, this special memory of the idealization phase with them, and we don't want to let go of it. So when these negative aspects inevitably start appearing, the cracks start forming on this well-polished mask that the narcissist wears, and we have no idea at this point that we're seeing in those moments the real them being exposed, we will forget what we see or make some kind of excuse in our minds, often helped along by the narcissist that is trying to sell us the reason why they exploded or why they were so unkind or whatever. We play this balance game in our minds. So we get the red flag, doesn't go unnoticed, but what happens is we keep on holding it up to the image that we've internalized of who they are at the very start. And we remember all of the love we have for them. And we remember the person that they've presented themselves to be. We don't know that they're narcissists. We don't know about narcissism. We can think and say to ourselves, well, everybody has a bad day. Everybody's entitled to, throw a wobbly. Sure, that was really aggressive, rude and violent. It wasn't necessary, but I understand that they're going through a hard time with their mother or their dog or their job or whatever it is. For whatever justification we create, we choose to ignore the red flags, but they don't go unmarked or unnoticed. We still have a little recording of it in our brains and in our beings. It's not forgotten. And why it's not forgotten is because your intuition, your instincts are warning you, and they're telling you not to forget those things. Because narcissists and these relationships with them are not safe places for anybody to be. They're highly dangerous. Doesn't matter what kind of narcissist you're dealing with. And of course, we have the spectrum of MPD, and some of them cross over into psychopathy, and then it becomes really dangerous. But all narcissistic relationships are destructive and damaging, and they're not safe environments to be. So we don't forget the red flags. We keep them stored inside of us someplace. But we just try to push them down because we want to keep on thinking about this love that we have for them and this idealized image that we have going on. If we knew truly that they were a narcissist, it would be different. But remember, back then, you didn't know. You didn't have a clue. You thought this was a regular, healthy person. And perhaps you were being kind to them and understanding. Maybe you thought they were going through a rough period of their life. They were going through a hard time with, like I said, their environment, their job, their family, whatever it is, whatever excuses they make, because they make a ton of excuses for their bad behavior. And so we allow certain things to slide that we shouldn't, but we do. Because like I said, we don't know that they're a narcissist. Perhaps we even think that they have some mental health issues and we want to help them and we want to stay patient and tolerant and all of these things. So we forgive. We don't forget because we do keep a record internally, and eventually we chalk it all up and we do the maths and we do realize that we're dealing with a very unhealthy and sick person, a narcissist. But I really feel, because of the nature of narcissistic abuse and the type of people that narcissists target, until you have enough of those pieces of the puzzle to assemble a clear picture, you won't leave. This reminds me, actually, there was a game show in the UK called Catchphrase, where contestants, they used to have an image that was concealed by pieces of a puzzle, and they'd have to answer questions correctly to get a piece of that puzzle removed so they could see and guess the catchphrase from the image that was being hidden below. And very rarely could they guess what the image was from one of those pieces being removed. Usually they needed to answer multiple questions to get quite a few of those puzzle pieces taken away so they could see a clearer picture. And this is exactly what you need to do in reverse in narcissistic relationships. We're given a false image, and in time, through all of the red flags that we're picking up along the way, we get a piece of the puzzle, but we can't make a clear picture until we've assembled quite a few pieces and they slot together in some kind of a cohesive way and it clicks in your brain. We don't know what the picture is or what we're looking at, first of all. We know that something's not right, and then we know that more than one thing is actually seriously wrong. And really why this is because narcissistic relationships are so perplexing. They're so confusing. You lose touch of yourself. Totally. You lose touch with reality. It's like living in the twilight zone. It's a dark and it's a scary place to be. You do have some awareness that you're trapped in some kind of a limbo state. And part of you, I think, wants to get free because you know that it's destructive for you to stay. But the other part is addicted to the narcissist. And it's the most soul-crushing, sickening, emotional experience that I think anybody could ever live. So if you have survived that for any length of time and you got out of it, despite how much of a battle that it would have been for you on such a very deep personal level, you've done something that you, honestly, you can be very, very proud of. because you've overcome a massive life struggle. You've broken free from the forces of darkness. That's how I see it. And you've triumphed. Even if you don't feel like it's a triumph, I think that nobody does, especially when you're soon out of it. You just feel exhausted and you feel like your whole world has fallen. But I'd like to impress upon you that it really takes a massive amount of strength and self-affirmation to do something like that. It's really not an easy move to make. And honestly, it really doesn't matter whether you make that move after 6 months or 40 years, you've made it. But when you don't know about NPD and cluster B disorders in general, because oftentimes NPD isn't standalone, sometimes BPD is involved or psychopathy, histrionic, sometimes there can be autism too. I'm just putting that one out there because that also adds yet another layer of how confusing this can be for somebody in a relationship with a narcissist trying to figure out what is going on. Even when you get red flags and clues, you may at some point start searching online even for some answers, and maybe you hear something like narcissists don't have empathy. They only do cold empathy, which is true. But if you're with a narcissist, and the narcissist also could be a psychopath, but they could also have crossovers of BPD, and there may be occasions where they really do seem to be very real in their emotions and their empathy. And this is why, these situations are so different. It's really hard to get to the bottom of what on earth is going on in your relationship, because it's insane. It's so dysregulated. You don't know if you're coming or going. It's very unsafe. The narcissist, as we know, can explode in any moment over the smallest of things. And this puts your nervous system in a state of fight or flight continuously. That's how you live. They make you a nervous wreck. And you never saw this coming. So this picture, because of so much smoke and mirrors, projections, gaslighting, triangulation, lying, cheating, stealing, you have this feeling like this is all taking place. And yet you feel like you're going crazy because there's nothing tangible that you feel like you can grab hold of because you're so confused. And even when you do have some evidence, you feel like you're still the one going crazy. In this process, we don't trust ourselves or our intuition, that inner voice that's warning us. And that's something that every single survivor learns to never ignore again. In the future, when you do the healing, you'll never ever have to collect so many red flags ever again. You may meet somebody, you might get 1, 2, but most of us won't stay for a third. You become a lot more trusting of your instincts and observant before you step into any new connection. But it wasn't always like that. At one time, many of us stayed much longer than what was healthy. But we aren't to blame. It's the nature of narcissistic relationships. If the picture isn't clear, then we need the time to gather enough of the pieces of the puzzle to know what's really going on behind it. We might not know everything about what they are. We may just have a hunch that the signs are pointing towards being a narcissist. We don't know about the other parts of them. Maybe they do have crossovers. It's not really necessary to know. You're just aware that you're with a very dark and dangerous person that is leading you into your destruction very willingly, that's exploiting you and using you and draining your energy and using all of your resources. And they literally don't care about you. And this makes us leave. But if you were discarded, and I don't want to trigger anybody if this happened to you, but in time, you're going to realize that this was the biggest blessing that could have happened to your life because it saved you. When you're out of the relationship, the puzzle continues to develop. It happens when you start to get the knowledge and you get educated about the existence of narcissists and the existence also of evil. And I found learning about narcissistic personality disorder, through the psychology was the starting point. But I know for myself, like a lot of you, I knew that there was a deep spiritual aspect to narcissistic personality disorder and these kind of relationships. And there was a lot more going on than what psychology could really reveal. But of course, a lot of the psychologists would think that this is crazy. And I have to say, reading the book by M. Scott Peck called People of the Lie was very affirmative, because the author is a psychiatrist that roots the psychology of evil within a spiritual framework. And why this is so validating is because even as a clinical professional, He's not scoffing at the existence of a deeper and invisible spiritual level. In fact, he believes it's essential for our understanding. It's like yet another veil that most people don't get the opportunity to ever see behind in life. And I know that M. Scott Peck saw behind that veil, just like I did, and just like many of you did. And there comes a point when you figure out and you just know this isn't just a personality disorder. Once you have enough pieces of the puzzle, you become empowered, because there was so much that the narcissist hid out of your sight. They knew what they were doing all along, and they were hoping that you would never figure them out, because their power is the smoke and mirrors. When they're standing in full sight, their game's up, they're finished, and they're powerless. They are only smoke and mirrors. Thank you all so much for your support as always. I hope that you really enjoy the skit.